Quite a few residents of the Sword Coast and further north are unfortunately familiar with the dreaded frostworm, a gargantuan monstrosity when grown to their full size. First appearing in 3rd edition's D&D Core Monster Manual, the average frostworm is about 40 feet or 12 meters long and 5 feet or 1.5 meters in diameter. In official Dungeons & Dragons stats for the weight of this creature, it's incorrect. If you have an old copy of 3.5 edition Core Monster Manual, write on page 112 that its weight is closer to that of a whale shark, so around 34,000 pounds. This is kind of important when working out how much damage the creature could do to castle fortifications when being driven in chained pairs by frost giants who can train these things. 34,000 pounds. This creature should also have the siege damage trait. It's going to do critical damage to inanimate, non-enchanted structures. The thing tunnels through snow and ice, and sneak attacks dragons in packs when they're younger. The only reason they don't run in packs when they're older is there's no reason for them to. The 3.5 edition frostworms went from huge to gargantuan. The 5th edition frostworm is simply gargantuan. Presumably there are juveniles. After laying a bunch of eggs that look very much like chunks of oval-shaped ice, the hatchlings will take around 3 to 5 years to reach adult size, which is an enormous growth rate, requiring a diet nothing short of terrifying, so I'm thinking they might actually be predators of such creatures as purple worms. Maybe the frostworms just eat a lot of smaller creatures on a nearly constant basis, which means that frostworms do not sleep. They're always hunting for food. There is another option that their habit of ambush hunting as adults tends to point towards this. They're not just feeding on organic material, they may actually just eat ice and snow as well. In such volumes, as they burrow through the ground, they bore right through snow, ice, and dirt, leaving a 5-foot wide circular tunnel behind them. So that kind of implies they're eating a lot of material as they go, and they're either capable of digesting inorganic material, elemental cold, or they sift through all that pay dirt for nuggets of burrowing creatures, fungus, bacteria, tree roots, and whatever else goes down their gullet. There are a couple of varieties of frostworm. The older 3.5 edition species has a pair of massive projecting mandibles growing out of their head. The 5th edition subspecies does not. It has mouth parts far more like a purple worm, which has again raised speculation among sages that the species might be related, but they really are not. There's a 3rd type, which you wouldn't have heard of, because I'm just going to show you how easy making a variant monster is. So they're not found on the Sword Coast or usually any further north of the Sea of Fallen Stars than my neck of the woods in Candlekeep. You can also find them rarely as far north as the Dragon Coast and way to the east in ancient Mulhorand. It's usually not ideal conditions for them, and the very northern edge of the Plains of Purple Dusk breeds a hardy variety with an appearance like polished bone. They're also not found further west than Harura and Lapalaya, and the ground is simply too wet for them there most of the year. In the regions between those outer limits, you can find the massive winter worms. Not even remotely related to purple worms or frost worms, but very similar. The winter worm has a much smoother, slick, and featureless exterior, though they can have projecting limb-like fins. They're also completely blind, relying on tremor sense and a form of sonar to sense its environment and hunt its prey. Like the frostworm, the enormous winter worms will attack from a bank of snow-covered ground. Only active during the winter months, during the rest of the year they form a solid block of ice around their body like a cocoon and just hibernate for the rest of the year underground. The other main difference with the winter worms is that they have a wicked stinging tail. Their natural prey, like the frostworm, is anything that crosses their path, but they will target large game like blink mammoths, moose, polar bears, seals, walruses, yaks, rothe, elephants, rock nests, and of course dragons slumbering in their lairs. Winter worms are not generally as formidable as the frostworms. They get to around challenge rating 9, while the frostworm is CR 17, so clearly the frostworms can and will prey on winter worms if they get the chance, but the frostworms also attack remoras on sight, even though this usually results in the death of the frostworm, and they normally can be repelled with sufficient amounts of open flame, as fire is the only thing they really fear. Frostworm body temperature is nothing less than supernatural, if not elemental. I'm not really sure what process allows them to live at such extremes. They actually explode on their death in a burst of frigid energy. Each creature within 60 feet of it must make a DC 20 dexterity saving throw, taking 8d6 cold damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. Creatures inside the worm, if they got swallowed, when it dies, automatically fail the saving throw. Very important to take note of this, as it could get a lot of adventuring parties killed attempting to rescue digesting friends and family. Also, don't forget that the frostworm is there to feed. They will go for the easiest snack first, which is any pack animals or tame riding beasts, livestock, children, injured people, women, and the elderly, pretty much in that order. A tactical spellcaster can ask their dungeon master if their very intelligent wizard could figure out how to modify an illusion so that it works on creatures who see with sound. And they could make the toughest fighters in the group look like the most delicious, plump, and healthy mountain goats, a particular favorite of the frostworm. Frostworms are not intelligent. They have the brain power of a centipede. It's not hard to trick their fairly basic range of senses. It's also very hard to stop them once they get all riled up and rampaging in an unintended direction. Priests of the beast cult churches of Malar often try to get their hands on frostworms and winterworms. They make excellent stock for alpine borders that are hard for nations to patrol with their own population. Frostworms are so cold, any creature that touches the worm or hits it with a melee attack within 5 feet takes 3d6 cold damage. Winterworms don't radiate cold that intensely unless they are in the act of cocooning themselves in ice for the warmer months of the year. The stinger of the winterworm injects deadly cold. It will debilitate limbs first to prevent prey escaping, then inject into the torso to bring them down, or into the head if they are prone or restrained. A kill shot for the winterworm that it will always take given the opportunity. The stinger has a combat reach of 10 feet, so does the bite of the worm. Its huge maw of many rows of razor-sharp triangular teeth inflicts 2d8 plus 7 piercing damage. For any creature smaller than huge, it must succeed on a DC 16 dexterity saving throw or be swallowed by the worm. A swallowed creature is blinded and restrained. It has total cover against attacks and other effects from outside the worm, of course. Unfortunately, the guts of the worm also bathes captives in potent acid, inflicting 46 acid damage at the start of each of the worm's turns to all creatures and objects trapped inside it. Plus, while in contact with any part of the worm, that the swallowed creature will also be taking cold damage. If the worm takes 25 or more damage in a single turn from a creature inside it, the worm must succeed on a DC 21 Constitution saving throw. At the end of its turn, it will regurgitate all swallowed creatures, which fall prone in space within 10 feet of the worm. If the worm dies, a swallowed creature is no longer restrained by it and can escape from the corpse by using 20 feet of movement, exiting prone. Some common sense applies when we're talking about the effects of a potent stomach acid like that on mundane materials and magic items. Wondrous items are often ruined by strong acids, scrolls not held in protective cases, cotton, unhardened leather, hemp, that sort of thing. Metal objects and most enchanted objects should be fine, if not a bit tarnished. Wounds from acid on people can result in a lot of disfigurement. Luckily, a whole water skin applied to the face can douse the burn in time. The stat block for the juvenile worm is included in the video in case you want a lower challenge rating beastie, or for a template for good base stats if you modify and turn them into your own unique monster with its own story. The stunning wail of the frostworm is legendary. It's used to immobilize the worm's prey. Heavy pulses of low-frequency sound masked by the unmistakable trill acts as a sonically induced compulsion to stand still. The trill has had its range and power reduced a bit for 5th edition. Each creature within 60 feet of the worm that can hear it must succeed on a DC 20 Wisdom saving throw or be stunned for 1 minute. The creature can repeat the saving throw for each time it takes damage at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on its success. Once a creature successfully saves against the effect, or this effect ends for it, that creature is immune to the trill of all frostworms for the next 24 hours. Frostworms are immune to this effect, of course, as are winterworms and purple worms, even though they don't trill like this. Winterworms and frostworms can make terrifying ambush predators, hunting down travelers in the wilderness, striking at dusk or dawn, in particular when their prey seem to get sluggish and move around in one small area, drawing the worm in to investigate. Frostworms can be trained from hatching and live an unknown length of time. They mostly die due to violence, well before old age gets them. Their aggression towards each other keeps their breeding rate low, so despite how fast they grow to adulthood, they don't overhunt the environment and don't remain an apex predator for long. Plus, they can, and on rare occasions, take out other apex predators. Just stay out of their way. Give up your horse and run for better, or better yet, ride your horse away as fast as you can. The worms may be fast, but they prefer to travel underground by burrowing. Worm lairs are made up of wide-ranging, twisting tunnels 5 feet wide with occasional clumps of worm waste containing indigestible treasures, if any. These tunnels frequently burrow up just under the surface where the worms will wait. During the summer thawed-out months, these tunnels are revealed and typically fill with water. Worm castings are invaluable to prospectors who can find gold flakes, gemstones, and other minerals. The tunnels also make exploring minerals underground much easier. Frostworms can be found in the Galena Mountains in the cold lands and the Thunder Peaks in the eastern heartlands. They can also be found outside the material plane in the elemental plane of cold. The iron wastes of the abyss and the air elemental variant of the frostworm can be found in the elemental plane of air. Not only do many variants of the frostworms exist on many worlds, they're also a multiversal constant, though one might have a giant slug version and one might have a giant leech, while others might have worm-like serpents or hideous mole mutant rats. I should leave it up to your capable hands. My name is AJ Pickett. I have lots of videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore, particularly monster ecologies and legends, the Forgotten Realms, and a few videos on character classes and races. If you like what I do, please support me on Subscribestar or Patreon. Check out my merch. Come hang out with me on my Discord server, have a chat. One of the reasons I do fewer live streams now is I'm often frequently chatting on Discords, podcasts, and message boards so often every day. Coming up next, we visit the night markets of Hades. But in the meantime, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.